leaving GE, I spent a lot of time thinking. And I defined a number of things for myself. So one of the first things I did is I defined success. And my definition for success was the ability to do what I want whenever I want to do it. That was success for me. So when I was 47 years old, I picked up my family, wife and kids, moved from New York City to San Diego. And in the summer of 2012, we went for a month to Africa. So before we went to Africa, I sat down and I showed you that picture of Michael Gerber, who wrote the book called The E-Myth. And Michael happens to live in San Diego. And I'd finished Breakpoints, the first version of it, and I sat down with him. He says, so what are you going to do next? And I said, I'm just going to enjoy my life. I moved to California to play golf and play tennis and I have a wonderful business. And he looked at me and says, no, you're not. I said, what do you mean, no, I'm not? He says, you have too much knowledge, you have too much drive, you have too much determination to just go play golf and tennis every day. He said, you're wired more like me. I'm like, no, I'm good. I said, it's too much work for me to do that. And he said, you're missing the point. He says, you have to do it through others. It's not about you. And he said, you need to redefine success. So for the next year, so this was March of 2011, I met with Michael Gerber. I went to Africa in the summer of 2012 with this conversation in my head is, what is my new definition of success? And I was talking in my head about making my company a global consulting organization, blah, 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 all that stuff. And I went to Africa, and I went to volunteer with a woman, I'll show you a picture in a minute, Deb Plotkin, an organization called UTouch. And I came back from that trip, and I'm standing in JFK after 27 hours on an airplane. I'm standing there talking to my business partner, a couple of people on my team, and it dawned on me that my journey was done when it came to success. That my relationship with success was complete. That I didn't need to redefine success for myself. What I needed was to move to significance. That my journey was no longer about being successful. If I could move my family from New York to San Diego and have two kids that are now 12 and 13 in 6th and 8th grade, and they were in 3rd and 5th grade when we moved, and they're two happy, well-adjusted kids, and my wife, who I never thought would enjoy San Diego, 6 months later had best friends, and we had a wonderful life there. If I could do that, and I could pick up my family and go to Africa for a month and not have my business fall apart, how much more do I need than that for success? And I make enough money, what do I want? So I could take all of my energy and I could go be more successful, but what would that do for me? And when I was standing in JFK that day, I realized that my conversation was more about how can I make a difference in the world? Because what I saw was beautiful, amazing, brilliant people without opportunity. A little backstory, when we were in New York, I wanted my kids to understand giving back early. So there's a place in the Bronx. We lived in Riverdale in the Bronx, just on the border of Yonkers. And about 5 miles away was this place called the Concourse House. And the Concourse House was this facility that took women between the street and low-income housing and gave them shelter, single moms. So moms and their kids, about 42 apartments. And the woman who ran the place was Manuela Shout. I would go to Manuela about every other Friday. I would sit down with Manuela, and my wife and kids would go read to the kids in the nursery school that's in the building. So from 5 to 7, probably 2 years, we were there just about every other week. And then I moved to California, and I lost that. I felt bad about my connection to the Concourse House, and I felt bad that I wasn't giving back. And I'm standing on a beach in California, and I meet this woman, Deb, and she says, what do you do? And I said, well, I moved here. I have a business that coaches IT companies. And she said, well, I'm running a nonprofit. We're bringing computers to rural villages in northern Uganda. This thing's going through my head. I really want to get back to connecting with giving back. I've always wanted to go to Africa. I know IT pretty well, and I've always wanted to go on safari. So this all fit. So we started on this journey. And it's 2 years later now. We're about to get a building. We just got a building donated from the government in northern Uganda. We're going to be opening up a business center. And my focus right now in this social economy, I call it the social economy, and when I say social economy or social enterprise, it's people that are building businesses, organizations that sole purpose is to improve the lives of the people in the communities that they're servicing. I think our culture is somewhat there, but most of the people that I meet are more interested in improving their own lives than improving the community around them. So how do we do this? How do we make social change with the skills that we have? So when I got back and I started thinking about it, I wrote this piece called The Conduit for Social Change. How do I take the skills that I've developed to apply to making the world a better place versus making more money? And that's what I've been doing. So I want to tell you a couple of stories. Deb is one of them. So we've got 6 centers open up in northern Uganda where we provide free training for computers, Word, PowerPoint, Excel. We're actually opening up our first business center that will drive enough revenue, hopefully, in the next 24 months or so, that we will not need any philanthropy at all to run those centers. So the business center will have a copy shop, computer training, probably a video production house in it. All donated equipment. We have a $75,000 grant to enhance the building and put all this equipment in. And hopefully in the next couple of years, we won't need any money from philanthropy to run the organization. So how do you combine business skills with people that are passionate about changing the world? And what I'm realizing that there's a lot of late 20-somethings, 30-somethings that are missing what a lot of people in this room have, which is wisdom. You've been through a lot of battles. You've been through a lot of wars. How can you take your skill set and apply them to people that are trying to make the world a better place, whether it's in your backyard or somewhere around the world? I have no attachment to where. I just believe that what I've learned in my journey is that success, while not totally empty, is incomparable to trying to be significant. So, Katie Meiler. I met Katie at a conference in Mexico called Opportunity Collaboration, 350 people from around the world trying to solve world poverty. So Katie is 31 years old now. When she was 23, she did a mission to Liberia, and she never left. That was 8 years ago. In that 8 years, she realized that the slums of Monrovia were filled with these young girls that were becoming prostitutes, 10, 11, 12 years old, human trafficking. She wanted to do something about it. So she started taking these kids, and she started trying to raise money on Facebook, $25 a kid to put them in school. So she did. And she raised thousands of dollars to put these kids into schools, and she started going to the schools to see what type of education they were getting, and it was horrendous. They were basically babysitting. So she was paying $25 a year for no education at all. And she said, you know what I really need to do? I need to build a school. She's an insanely passionate young lady, and she got to meet a lot of people. She's full of love, full of energy. And I'd hope you would check out some of her spoken word poetry on YouTube. Her organization is called More Than Me. And she ended up becoming friends with a lot of people there, including the president of the country. And back in June, she got a building donated that she turned into a brand new school for 240 girls from the slums of Monrovia. And now she's looking at turning it into a boarding school. And the sustainability part is that she was given a building, a bombed out building. If you know anything about Liberia, there's been a civil war there for a very long time. But she got a 8-bedroom, 30-bed house that she's in the middle of renovating right now for $20,000 a year that should throw off about $300,000 in revenue that would support the entire school for the entire year. So how do we take business models, capitalism, things that people in this room know about, to apply them to projects that can impact people's lives? So these young girls have a chance to do wonderful things versus being stuck in a future of prostitution, because that's all they know. That's all they're surrounded with. So Katie's touring the country right now with a gentleman named McIntosh, who was a child soldier, who she met in the slums, and he was given a rifle at 11 years old. So I'm talking about things that people in this room could never imagine. That you can't imagine your kids at 11 years old being pulled from your house and given a rifle to go kill other people. But in other parts of the world, this still exists. And we kind of, as a country, say, well, if it's not here, I don't care about it. I get that. I don't agree with it, because I believe we're all human, and we need to look at how we impact the world. So I'm going to leave you with this last story. This is Armstrong. Armstrong is a 27-year-old young man who lives in half time in Uganda and half of his time in Nairobi in Kenya. When I went to Uganda, there's a Jewish community on the western part of Uganda called the Abayadaya, and Armstrong is a Ugandan Jew who, according to Deb, the founder of UTouch, the smartest kid she's met in her travels to Uganda. So he helped us network the center we built in that community. And he came up to me, and Deb comes up to me and says, Armstrong needs $1,000 to go take his pilot's test. He's been studying at a school in Nairobi for the last 4 years. Now, this kid has no money, none. Comes from a family with very little. And he keeps going to school every day because he's the smartest kid in the class, and the school won't kick him out. But he doesn't pay any tuition. So, long story short, we lost our bags on the way to Entebbe from Turkey. I shouldn't say we lost our bags. Turkish Airlines decided not to put our bags on the plane. They were overweight, and they needed to keep some baggage behind, and it turns out that all 4 of our bags ended up being those bags that they decided to leave behind. So the country director for Turkish Airlines gave us a whopping $300 the first day for our inconvenience. And I went to the airport the next day to pick up our bags, and guess what? They didn't come back that day either. So I went back to the country director. He ended up giving us $1,200 in cash for our inconvenience. So I looked at my wife and I said, you know, I didn't budget. This is extra money that I found. Let's give it to Armstrong. So we did. I don't think this young man had ever seen $1,000 in his life. But we gave him 10 $100 bills because I was told to bring $100 bills, years 2006 or newer, so we got 10 of those. And he went to Nairobi, and we met him a week and a half later. Big smile on his face back at Wilson Airport, and he says, Mr. Larry, I passed my test. And I said, great, congratulations. He says, now I need help. I said, what do you need now? He says, now I need flight time to go get my pilot's license so I can go work. So I take Armstrong and I lend him some money to get his pilot's license. And he gets his private pilot's license. And he says, Mr. Larry, I go try to get a job with private pilot's license. No, I need commercial pilot's license. So I said to Armstrong, I said, I'm done at this point. And this is where fate comes in. So I start talking to everybody I know, and I say, I have this young man, I'm trying to help him become a commercial pilot. Do you know anybody that can help me? So I found a couple of key resources. I found someone in Nairobi who was a commercial pilot through a friend. And I said, I want you to meet Armstrong, and I want you to tell me whether he's capable of doing what he says he can do. So I got that done, and the gentleman met with him, and he said he has all the skills to be a great commercial pilot. He's articulate, he's smart, he's got all the skills to do it. Talking to somebody else whose ex-husband works at a flight training school in San Diego. Turns out owned by a Jewish gentleman. So I call Phil, and I say, Phil, my name's Larry. I've got this kid in Uganda that wants to become a commercial pilot. Can you help? So Phil says, come down, let's meet. It's called San Diego Flight Training International. So Phil says, I bring in kids from all over the world. I can get his visa process done. I can get all that stuff done. You just get the rest of the process handled. So I believe that yesterday, I got an email from him this morning saying he's having some technical problems getting the money, but he passed his TOEFL. He did everything he needed. He had a meeting with the consulate in Kampala to get his visa approved to come to the United States to become a commercial pilot. That wouldn't happen without people like me going around the world to see how we can make an impact. And it's not a big deal. But what I've realized over the last 2 years of doing this work is that it doesn't take a lot to make a huge difference in people's lives. I still run a business. I still have 2 kids. I'm still a husband. I'm still a son. I'm still a brother. But I take time to make little steps for people that are huge in their world. My son went to school the other day, and I had him watch a video about this guy who started Charity Water. And Scott Harrison in Charity Water talks about how blessed we are to have clean water. So it's Thanksgiving week, and the teacher asked my son, what are you thankful for? And my son says, clean water. And she says, no, really, what are you thankful for? How pissed do you think I was? And my son's saying that he's really thankful for clean water. That's, as a culture, we don't get. We don't get the fact that we have roads and cars and money and systems and process and clean water and bathrooms and all these things that we take for granted. I can't tell you what my kids had to go to the bathroom in northern Uganda when they really had to go. Places that you would never want to send your worst enemy. I could show you pictures of dormitories at universities that are worse than most prisons in this country. But we look at it and say, not my problem. So, what am I asking you to do? I'm not sure what I'm asking you to do. I'm just asking you to think. There's an opportunity for you to make a difference in somebody's life. I would ask that you do it. There's an opportunity for you to go look at the rest of the world and see, how can I make a difference? I would ask you to do that. So as I end all of my speeches, I have this quote from a book by Tim Sanders called Love is the Killer App. It says, business education without execution is just entertainment. So I hope that the last 60 minutes was more than entertaining. You actually take some of the information that I provided and put it to use, and that you enjoy the rest of your conference. Thank you very much. Thank you.